Well, it's good to do. Now we're switching things up now because for the past few episodes we've actually all been sitting around a table chatting with each other. But now we've got special guest Matt Briel from Lulu. It's good to have you, Matt. Thanks for joining us remotely.
Thank you. It's good to be here. I'm sorry I couldn't make it to Austin, but next time.
We're just the key here is to know that Matt's actually gallivanting around the world. He's currently in Antarctica. He's built himself an igloo.
And he brought a purple Sharpie.
That's right. That's the one thing you got to bring with you to Antarctica is a purple Sharpie.
Now, Joe and I were talking before the recording started. We were talking about Lulu, and Lulu's been around for a while. Lulu was kind of the original gangsta of this whole industry in a way. Now, I want to ask you, and maybe it's a hard question, and you can say pass if you need to, but like, what happened there? Because I mean, Lulu was positioned, I think, to really kind of define what this industry was going to be and what it became. And there was a little bit of a period there where Lulu kind of went under the radar. So you want to talk about that a bit?
Absolutely. I'll give you the very quick history of Lulu, and that will answer the question you just asked, as well as probably a few other questions around Lulu. Um, we have been around for a long time. We probably are the OGs in the self-publishing world, especially as it pertains to print on demand and being able to absolutely publish a book from start to finish online. That was the goal for Bob Young when he founded the company. When Bob Young took Red Hat public back in those days, he wanted to get his story out there. People were asking for it. He couldn't get a traditional publishing deal, and he was amazed by that. So he had just had this windfall of cash from that IPO, and he was like, "Listen, nobody should have to go through this just to get their story out." So he started Lulu because of that. That was around 2002. Um, Lulu did, I think, corner the market there for a while because, as you can imagine, back then there weren't many, if any, real places that you could online, upload a Word doc and turn that into a book. A little bit later in time, Amazon comes along and they actually knocked on Bob's door and wanted to buy Lulu. That's a story for another time, but obviously Lulu did not sell to Amazon. They went on to purchase BookSurge, CreateSpace, and so once Amazon entered the market and really came on the scene for self-publishing with ebooks, that's what really disrupted the market and the publishing world, and probably for the better. At that point, Lulu was now playing catch up instead of the leader. And Lulu played catch up for quite some time and tried several different things. Obviously, they got into the ebook market and kind of took the focus off of print on demand, which was always our strong suit. What Lulu did well in the beginning and continues to do well, one of our strongest suits is our print network, our global print network. So by diverting all that focus and resource onto ebooks and some other things, Lulu lost its focus and therefore lost their foothold in the market to Amazon, as I think anybody would have, and still to this day, people lose their foothold to Amazon every day. And so that's pretty much what happened. Couple that with a couple of probably not so wise partnerships. We had a partnership with ASL, which really did some reputation damage to us, and got us on the no-fly list for several organizations out there. And since doing away with that relationship for obvious reasons, I think we're back on the mend and on the up and up. And we've spent the last, I'd say, 4 to 5 years really investing heavily in innovating in this space. And we were the first to launch, automated direct sales. We were the first to have a Shopify app. We've really been trying to really make good on what we started to do back in 2002 and really sort of regain that foothold, at least, if not the largest, and that's fine, at least as the innovator and the people who are really pushing the envelope for authors and indie creators.
Yeah, and good on you guys for not giving in and selling to Amazon, by the way. I mean, they own enough of the industry, I think.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, we wouldn't be able to have the conversation we're going to have today and do the things we're going to do in the future if we didn't have a partner like Lulu to do the heavy lifting with this technology.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about direct sales because that's currently the hotness in the indie author world. And you have like a kind of a package solution, right?
Yeah. So unfortunately, around 2020, um, we had to re-release, so to speak, our entire platform into the public. So we took a few years, we rebuilt our entire platform from start to finish. because until we did that, which we started doing around 2017, 2018, until doing that, Lulu was the same platform that had been built back in the early 2000s. And so we couldn't innovate even if we wanted to. We couldn't do anything cool and new. We couldn't, and we knew the trends that were coming. We just couldn't do anything. So we knew we had to rebuild our platform. We did that. We launched our first Shopify app probably almost 5 years ago at this point. But in 2020, we re-released our entire platform. And that allowed us to really start looking at, okay, where do we think the industry's going? What are the trends that we see happening in the next 3 to 5 years? As an executive team, we get together and we talk about those things. And the things we were seeing was this reliance, not reliance, I guess, per se, but what we saw was everybody was really, putting all their eggs in the distribution basket and relying on third-party retailers. And even Lulu offers third-party distribution channels, but we'll be the first to tell you that's not the best way to make money. And quite frankly, these days, it's not the best way to get coverage and audience building. We just knew there had to be a better way. So looking at trends, e-commerce, what was happening, Shopify was on the rise, looking at a lot of these other things that were starting to fall in place, we decided that's what we need to do. We need to build a Shopify app. And then from there, we'll gauge how well it does, what the adoption rate is. And if it takes off, we'll just add more. In those early days, we got laughed out of conferences all the time. We would get in front of authors and start talking about selling direct, and people would literally just get up and walk out of our sessions. We almost got laughed out of San Francisco Writers Conference completely. People thought we were crazy. They were like, don't sell on Amazon? These guys are nuts. Like, who is this? But yeah, I think that, for us, direct sales, we thought was going to be the way. So we doubled down on it. We put all our eggs in that basket. And now we're at a place where, just like you said, other than AI, direct sales is the hottest topic on everybody's lips right now, and for good reason. And the solution that Lulu went to market with is basically, like you said, it's an all-in-one package. Is it the easiest thing on the planet to navigate? Not necessarily, but no e-commerce setup is going to be that easy. But we do have the easiest of the solutions for authors. We have the most all-encompassing one. And basically, you set up your books on Lulu, you connect to your Shopify store or your Wix or any of those others that we offer right now. Those projects populate right over to your e-commerce site, and you just start selling. And on the back end, we get those orders, we print them, and we ship them for you. It's basically, in a nutshell, that simple. Every day, we're adding more and more products to the mix for that. And again, we have the largest print network all over the US. So the ability for a creator and author to connect directly with their audience, and if they're based in the US, sell the latest copy of their book to one of their fans in Istanbul or somewhere like that, you can do that with Lulu. It's as easy as snapping your fingers. And I think that's some of the big value we bring to the table, is those years of experience of developing these direct sales apps and really understanding a lot of the nuances that go along with it.
One of the challenges that authors have been facing when it comes to direct sales is dealing with things like taxes, state to state, country to country. Is that something you guys help out with?
That's funny. Literally right before this interview, I was having a conversation with our vice president of product, Nick, and we were talking about a conversation we came across in one of the Facebook groups there, where people were talking about taxes and shipping. So those are the two most complicated aspects of running an e-commerce store, which is basically what you're doing when you sell direct, right? We do not offer any tax advice for obvious reasons. Most people aren't a fan of the IRS in that sense, and we certainly don't want to fall into their sights or their bad graces. But we would always tell everybody, obviously, if you have tax questions, consult a CPA, or if you know somebody who deals with taxes. There are a lot of great resources out there, by the way. I've looked for myself and found them. So we will tell you to Google it. You'll find some good tax resources out there. I think where the confusion actually comes in for most people is, when do I have to collect it? Is it based on where the buyer lives, or is it based on where I'm at and shipping the product from? And more importantly, what country is going to require, VAT versus some sort of sales tax or none? A lot of those questions are actually answered and found on the respective platform. So Shopify does a really good job of giving people educational around taxes and how and when to collect them, as does WooCommerce and Wix and some of the other platforms. So no, Lulu won't give you any tax advice. And honestly, None of the other POD providers should give you tax advice either. That's a no-no. If that's a red flag if they do. Shipping is also a complex thing. So there are ways to get live shipping rates injected so that you don't have to do manual setup. But again, I would say there are resources everywhere for that stuff.
Yeah, and if I just step in on that tax piece, I think one of the real interesting things kind of going through the history is, one of the advantages that Amazon leveraged was what they were doing with taxes, right? And they were making it harder to compete with them because the shenanigans they were legal shenanigans, but the way they were playing things. And now that the Supreme Court is was it the Wayfair v. South Dakota ruling? Now they're using that. They're taking the flip side of it, and they're saying, well, you don't want to get into all this complex sales tax stuff. Let us handle it all. So they are now using what was, their one way of kind of competing. Now you're using it the other way. And I would just say to authors, when you're thinking through this, having to pay, I wish on you to have massive sales tax bills in every state and every country. That is a high class problem, and you'll be able to solve it. You're just going to have to think through that stuff. Don't let that be a limiting factor to your business, right? This is an opportunity, and already, I know with Shopify, they've integrated really well with some of these things like TaxJar and some of the other solutions. And that gives you guidance. And we've got direct clients, and it's something that we help people with. And yeah, you have to be keeping an eye on things and oh, now I really need to start paying taxes in California or New York. But again, in my view, that's a good problem to have.
I agree with Joe there. Again, I think for the most part, Kevin's probably referring to, a lot of the people who are just starting out with direct sales, those are heavy questions to try and take on yourself, taxes and things like that. In general, most people don't want to deal with them. So I get it, but you're right about that. It's a good problem to have if you qualify in every state for needing to pay taxes there. And quite frankly, a good CPA is not going to cost you an arm and a leg compared to some of the other stuff you might be spending money on these days. So it is worth it. It's a necessary thing. And I think the core thing you said there, Joe, was, it's a business at that point. You need to treat it as a business. And whether you like that sort of nomenclature or title or not, you're a business owner. And as such, you need to do the responsible things sometimes when you don't want to. And I think that's probably a harder pill for people to swallow than maybe this idea that they have to tackle taxes. We've talked to a lot of creators and authors, and the idea that they're now labeled as a business owner just, quite frankly, scares them to death sometimes. And I get it, for a lot of people, that's not an easy thing to grapple. But, I think the one thing we always tell people is just take a deep breath. There are resources out there. There are free resources out there. There are people you can talk to. Lulu's got plenty of resources. Shopify does. WooCommerce does. And lastly, the other good point you brought up was there's an app for that. Just like the saying goes, if you got issues with taxes, I promise you there's an app for it. Find that app. It's probably $10, $20 a month. Layer it on top of your Shopify store, and you're off to the races. You don't have to worry about it. And at the end of every tax year, they'll bundle all that paperwork up for you, all nice and neat, and you're good to go. You don't have to worry about it.
We've talked a little bit about, we've talked definitely about POD and a little bit about direct marketing. What are some of the other features? What are some features of Lulu that people might actually find surprising?
That's a great question. Our marketing team definitely has their work cut out for them most of the time. One of the newer things we introduced that a lot of people still don't know about, and I promise we're working on getting the news out there in every way possible, but we released a feature called the order import tool. And basically that was in response to everybody who likes to utilize crowdfunding, Kickstarter, or things like Patreon, subscription things, where essentially what that means is any type of those or any of those activities, what usually happens is when you're done, you're presented with a CSV file that has all your donors or backers or subscribers or whatever you want to call them on there, and basically your order sheet. And you're kind of left as the owner of that Kickstarter, to go and facilitate getting all those books and things printed. And many times that means, manually entering those orders into some interface or trying to work some other way around that. We created this upload tool where you just bring that CSV file to your Lulu account, make sure the project is ready and in there and everything's been approved and you're good to go with the book itself. You upload that CSV file. We print and ship an order to every single one of those line entries in that spreadsheet for you. And that's it. It's literally, you know, a 2-button upload process, and all those books that you promise to each of those tiers, you know, those donors or of your Patreon followers or any of those things will get printed and shipped. And once we release that, that feature actually has been taking off on a faster, steeper curve, or adoption curve, I should say, than anything we've released in the past, even the first time we released the Shopify app. So I think people are finding a lot of value in that. I don't think a lot of people still know about it, especially in the world of fiction and serial fiction writers. But it's a great tool for people who utilize Kickstarters or crowdfunding, subscriptions, Patreons, things like that. So I think that's one of the things that people probably have not heard of, at least in mass, even though we're working to get the word out now about that feature. Other things like, you know, the ability to order your books yourself through self-purchase features, and get, you know, heavy discounts based on volume, you know, things like that. We also offer tiered pricing for people who run continuous volume. We have a number of different ways to work with you to get your book to market or into your hands for in-person events or things like that. And then lastly, we have a very robust and flexible API for it's our universal print API. And we work with a lot of businesses and other individual creators on giving them the ability to integrate that API into their website. And that's completely different than using something like a Shopify plugin. That API gives you a pretty wide range of flexibility on what you can do as it relates to producing books and having them printed and shipped pretty much anywhere in the world. Things like, you know, customized in sheets and you know, all kinds of really cool things. So those are a few things that I think a lot of people still aren't quite aware of.
What are the features that you guys, what's the most popular features, I guess? Like, what are authors really flocking to you for right now?
I think right now what people are flocking to us for the most, is the direct sales component and the different ways that we facilitate, you know, getting your book to market in a direct way. Everybody has their platform of choice. We're continually integrating more of those platforms, excuse me. And we have a great dev team that can also do some custom one-off stuff and some Zapier, you know, zaps and things like that. So right now, like you said at the top of this, direct sales is the hot thing. And so that's what most people are flocking to us for. That's usually combined with our print quality. So we still have a lot of people that use Lulu. Their projects, they're kept what we call private access. So they're creating things for their businesses or schools. They're creating projects that they themselves are going to order 500 copies for a particular reason. It's not going to go for sale on Amazon or on their website or anything like that. And people use us because of the quality of those projects and those books. So we're very proud of the quality and the print network we've built globally and all the testing that we continually do to make sure that print quality is top notch.
Now, speaking as an author, an indie author myself, one of the things I think about first anytime I'm considering any service is what's it going to cost me. So what's some of the overhead that authors are going to be facing when they come to you guys?
That's a great point, Kevin. So in general, in theory, it's free to use Lulu. So we don't charge and never have charged any upload fees or, you know, a subscription fee or anything like that. There is a $4.99 ebook fee that we instituted last year when you go to upload an ebook for distribution. And that was mainly to combat a lot of fraud that was happening in the ebook market. You guys are well aware of all that stuff. And we found that when we instituted that $4.99 upload fee, the fraud rates cut drastically. So that is the one fee you might encounter. On top of that, you know, again, outside of what you might pay, let's say to have a Shopify store that you're paying Shopify for, or WooCommerce or any of these other things, Lulu is still pretty much 100% free to use. Now, the cost of manufacturing a book, everybody knows Lulu is more expensive than, you know, KDP or Ingram Spark or any of the others out there. There are reasons for that. We'll never try to compete on price. It's a losing game in our opinion. And quite frankly, our books are a little more expensive for good reason. We have a much larger global print network, and that takes time, effort, and quality control. We do better quality print work. Again, that takes a lot of work and effort and constant monitoring. And then quite frankly, again, when we offer certain things like, the ability to use our direct sales channels for free, um, you know, that's kind of built in a little bit to the cost of the books. So we are on average probably, anywhere from 50 cents to $1.50 more per book than you might pay KDP or some of the others. And obviously that can change depending on the project size itself. If it's, full color, 600 page, 8.5 by 11, the history of Attila the Hun, that's going to cost you a little bit, but you know.
I mean, you guys probably have an advantage though, because maybe you're a little more, but I know from experience that KDP's print-on-demand books can sometimes be rejected from like certain storefronts or certain distributors. So you guys don't have limitations like that.
That's correct. We don't have limitations like that, and that is part of it. I think that why you see some of those rejections from KDP and others at times is because of the quality and a few other things. But quality is obviously a big thing when you're talking about print books for sure. I mean, audiobooks and ebooks are a whole nother subject, but print books has always been our core. That's what we've always been good at. These days, that's still what we try to focus on, is providing a good quality print product. And like you said, it costs a little bit more to do that. And in the end, when you're talking about direct sales and authors and creators who are building their own network and their own fan base and really trying to take their power back from third-party retailers, you have to be cognizant of what your legacy looks like, of what your brand looks like. You don't want your brand to be built on bad quality. We've gotten books from authors before at events, including, 20 books / Author Nation just this past November. Like, here, check out my book, read it on the plane ride home. Okay. I go to open that book up and pages are already falling out of the spine. Like, and I know where that book came from, and it wasn't Lulu. And so imagine shipping, books all over the world to your fans and readers, and they're opening up and having the same experience, or pages are upside down. And I know mistakes happen on occasion, but we really do minimize that. And our quality, again, I'll always put our stuff against anybody else's.
Let me kind of step in, and we talked a lot about what you guys can do, but there's like a big elephant in the room, and that is there's been these massive changes in the industry, including you brought up 20 books ending. Their new show that we're part of is Author Nation, and you guys have stepped up as the sponsor for that first show. I'm real interested in us getting the community to understand, stuff that you and I have talked about probably for almost 2 years behind the scenes, about what we see is changing in the industry, and specifically, why you're doing this, to get what new message out. How, like, I know you're a futurist and you see things that are happening, and this is, you mentioned earlier that you're trying to get more of your message out. Let's get that message out. Let's talk about why you're stepping up and doing this, the kind of financial commitments that you're doing for the community right now.
Yeah, thank you. That is a big part of what we've been focusing on for the last few years, and it is a big part of why we decided to double down on things like direct sales, and some of the sponsorship and support we give to other creator communities as well. Outside of the 20 Nation community, or Author Nation community, excuse me. 20 Nation, I just made up a new name for it. The main reason for that is again, a few years ago when we started looking at some of the trends that we thought we would see, coming into the publishing industry, we still firmly believe that the future of publishing is creator driven. And what I mean by that is, up until this point, it's primarily been publisher driven. So a lot of the innovations that happened over the last 20 to 30 years were driven by publishers, by publishing companies. They needed this, or they needed that, or they needed to eke more profit out of this. So, print companies, retailers, they had to sort of bend and innovate to what the publishers needed. And, the industry's been driven by publishers in other ways too, right? Traditional publishers is what I'm speaking of mostly. I think, and we all think here, and you guys may or may not agree, but I firmly believe the future of publishing is creator, author driven. And so, and what we mean by that is they'll be the ones dictating what new innovations need to happen, because they need to be able to better serve their fans, their readers. They need to be able to better take their content to market in ways that make sense for their genre or their area or any other number of things. And so that's what we've started doing over the last couple of years, is taking our cues from the creators and authors and not so much from the publishing industry in general. To be quite honest, I could care less what the traditional publishing industry does and has done over the last few years and will continue to do or not do. I don't think they're leading the way anymore. And in fact, I think they're falling way behind. When you look at creators and authors that are building these audiences on their own, by the way, of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers, those are customer databases. And if they're not already customer databases, they are customer databases in the making. I think the problem is that a lot of creators and authors don't understand the power that they could have if they were selling direct and keeping all of that customer data. Because until now, I don't care how many copies of your ebook you've sold, hundreds of thousands on Amazon, you have none of that data. You don't know a single person that purchased that ebook. You don't know the name of a single one of your fans if you sold everything on Amazon or through any other retail channel for that matter. They keep all that. And that's something even the traditional publishers don't have most of the time, because they gave all that control to third-party retailers as well. So creators and authors are in a position right now to leverage this technology and the things that Lulu offers and some of the others to become the customer databases of the future, to become the people that the publishers go to and say, hey, I've noticed you got 5 million followers at this point. You've got a ton of readers. Could we buy a little bit of ad space on your blog? Or can we get, like, it's about time that the big guys are coming to the little guys now and saying, hey, can we give you some money for this? Or can we do that? Or, for the longest time, they had all the power, but that's shifting. And it's very easy for creators and authors to start doing that right now, given all of these tools. So when we talk about the future of publishing and being a futurist and what we see as a trend and why Lulu is so financially and technologically committed to the indie author community and what's going on, we've been watching this. We've been participating behind the scenes. We're hoping to continue orchestrating some of this. And at the end of the day, we want to be on the right side of it. So, that's the long and short of it. And that's, the most transparent answer I could give you.
Yeah, and we're speaking to you about the future of publishing in a whole other episode, so we're going to deep dive into that in different episodes. Everybody tuned in, make sure you find that. But speaking of future, what I want to know is, like, what's the future of Lulu right now? Tell me all the secrets that you guys have on that board behind that thing behind you.
Well, the board behind me, I don't know if anybody will be able to
Is that
see
your
it, but
plans?
The only secret.
That's actually his business plan behind him. Can't you read that?
That's right. So there's a slice of pizza, there's a book, there's a Frenchie. You might see some Disney ears.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our future. The future for Lulu, as I alluded to a little bit earlier, is we have doubled down in this area that Joe pointed out. All of our eggs are in that basket to the tune of sponsoring something like Author Nation at the level that we did, because we believe in that. We've actually, as of last year, August, September last year, we acquired our own event as well that was firmly rooted in the creator communities, as well as another brand, that was firmly rooted in the creator community. We really do believe in this concept, of creators having the power and being the future of publishing. So what's in the future for us is to continue trying to innovate and give people what they need to make it even easier to get their content to market and to honestly make a really good living from content. I think the amount of people that you see, being able to make a good living off of their content now versus 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago is so vastly different, in a good way. And we want to continue being part of that. So the future is more features, more functionality that provide that, and looking for other technological ways to solve some of the problems that creators may encounter in the future to do that. I think at the core, Lulu's always been a technology company.
Excellent. All right. Well, we're close to time to wrap up, so we're going to do that. Matt Briel from Lulu. Really exciting what you guys are doing, and like we opened with, like, you guys were kind of there at the beginning. A lot of us who started out early knew and used Lulu early on. So it's really fascinating to see what you are evolving into. Kind of poised to take over the whole industry, I think. You think is that your goal?
I appreciate that, Kevin. I don't know that that's on our board back here of future plans to take over the whole industry. But what Lulu would love is to have their name in the history of kind of rewriting the way publishing happens, and to be a big part of that, not the whole of it, but I appreciate you and Joe having me on. I love talking to you guys, and I look forward to more.
All right. Well, and to everyone tuned in, listening, or watching, make sure you find the rest of the interviews with Matt, because they are, of course, genius. You can't discount that sort of thing. And make sure that you go and visit authornation.live so that you can sign up and appear at the conference that Lulu is actually one of the biggest sponsors for. So maybe you'll get to see Matt, hang out with him. So take care, everybody.